Hi, this is Damien AtHope, and I am an Axiological Atheist. And I am here with Richard. Could you tell us your name and what kind of an atheist are you?
My name is Richard Hess. I'm an atheist and a theological non-cognitivist, or agnostic, if you will.
And is that agnostic with an A or agnostic with an I, for people that don't know what those terms are?
Sorry?
I said, is that an agnostic with an A or agnostic with an I? And can
it's agnostic with an I.
Could you just explain for people that don't know what that means?
It's basically, I don't find the term God to be meaningful in any kind of way. It doesn't describe anything. It has no explanatory power. And to reference it is basically to speak nonsense. It cannot be clearly defined, even by its own quote-unquote definition. And to start speaking of such a thing is to basically explain nothing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have the exact same feeling. I don't acknowledge that God has any meaning, because it doesn't. It starts off. I always say it starts off with people have to first prove to me there's a supernatural anything, which has never been shown. For me to even make a jump that you could pile other qualities to supernatural to form a deity. I mean, if you can't even do the basics of anything supernatural, how can I believe you could put a bunch of powers and special and beingness and intelligence and what? You can't even show me the just spiritual or anything or connected to anything at all. So I agree with you. You're talking nonsense.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that when you start speaking of God and supernatural, I mean, that's one of the big problems they have with trying to reference God. You have to show supernatural things beyond the natural before you can even get to the and it's a step that no one actually holds theists accountable for. It seems to be like one package. Supernatural. No, there's a lot more to explain there. That's just, not only a violation of Occam's razor. You get into a whole other set of issues that you can't even begin to explain. I mean, supernatural by definition is beyond natural. And for you to even try to point to that, then try to tie in some other deity that you know is in there as responsible for creating the universe, our lives, tells us how to live, what to eat, what sexual positions we're allowed to engage in, with who. I mean, there's just way too much to even try to begin to discuss this. And we have to get to the next point before we can get to the God point. I mean, you can't just bypass the supernatural and expect to fill it in with whatever blanks you want to fill it in with. I mean, then you leave yourself open to anything. You could put anything in there, and it's just as meaningful. You could put blah, 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 and it carries just as much meaning as saying God. I mean, it's nonsense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I always find it, funny when people try to say that kind of stuff. It just it's meaningless to me. So, and when did you first realize that you were an atheist?
I grew up Roman Catholic, Sunday school, the whole deal. My mom and stepdad at the time, he was a Lutheran, so then I guess to appease him, we switched to Lutheran, which I don't think was much better. And it never really just kind of stuck with me. My belief was always provisional at best. I mean, I kind of got to do what the parents do. It makes them happy. I got money on my confirmation. I mean, that was always helpful. But it never really stuck with me. But when later on, my stepdad was abusive, and eventually, they had to part ways. But I saw the whole hypocrisy of the church firsthand. I got to see how he would use this, and he would do something, they shouldn't be doing, cheating my mom, whatever. And then he'd right away, confess, go to church. We'd all go to church and pray about it. Then it's like, well, how dare you not forgive me when God has? And then the church was backing him up on this. I mean, the whole thing, you got to pray this out. God has a plan. It's never really clicked. So I left the church way before I started questioning the existence of a God. So I guess I was an anti-theist in that sense.
Yeah.
First. I just started seeing the problems this caused within families and how it would destroy families, because it did my own. And you have to make so many concessions to make it work. and it involves each person in the house. So someone in the house is not telling the truth. If basically, if there's no fight, someone's not being honest.
Right.
And that is kind of the key for the church, at least my experience, and from many former Christians who I did speak to, they kind of had similar experiences with the church. So then, it wasn't until later on I started getting into philosophy and things, and that's when I started questioning the existence of God. And then that just didn't make sense. It didn't really make sense then either. It was just, religion was kind of separate from the existence of God. I've always treated it that way, because you can be a theist and not necessarily religious.
Right.
So I separated the two pretty early in life, but I never really identified too much with it. So only recently I've really came out as being an atheist and trying to take a stand and try to help people who are having these same problems and spread secular values. Because when you read the Bible, there's some horrible lessons for families and kids. When you get, in passages like that, it gets to be where, God comes first, your family is always second. And I never understood that kind of preaching. Then you get into original sin. It creates a whole dangerous outlook for people to take out there and pass on to their children. It becomes a cycle over and over, and that's it starts with what you're taught as a child. I mean, you're taught to accept these things. You're sheep. You don't question, and it just snowballs from there. And I mean, moderates might say, "Oh no, that's a different kind of religion." It's the same passages they are taught to. I mean, and I felt like we had to do something to try to help spread this. All my, both of my boys, teenagers, are both atheists. They don't have any belief, much to the, chagrin of my family. They don't seem to like that too much, but we don't fight too much about it. We kind of leave each other alone. So I do have it kind of there. But,
so you said that you recently came out. When exactly was it? How long ago? To start promoting your atheism out?
Well, I actually started watching YouTube videos like Theoretical Bullshit and Zongit's Chris and those kind of videos, and I started actually arguing with people online because I wanted to, I guess, trying to find something to do with it, because I had a lot of anger about some of the things I was seeing on the news and nowhere to really vent it. I mean, I didn't have any atheist friends. My family wasn't atheist, so I kind of went to the internet and I started debating people on there, and I found out that I actually really liked it, and I also realized that they all have the same bullshit. So I started looking into groups, local Pittsburgh groups here to meetup groups, and my very first one is actually where I met Allison, and we just kind of hit it off and decided, hey, I said, I'm not here just to sit around and bash God over a couple beers. I mean, I want to do something.
Right.
She wanted to do it too, and we decided, well, let's start a blog. Let's start, being active. Let's start, trying to do something with this. And
could you tell us your blog and explain a little bit about it for people that don't know?
Oh, it is Couple of Atheists, and it's basically centered around issues that secular families face. Families, a lot of families don't like to. Be associated with, other atheists and things like that. And, within a family, like my family, my brother stuff leaves me alone. But my mother, for example, has real anxiety over me going to hell. And she thinks I'm raising my children wrong for them being atheists and things like that. And there's a lot of issues that people deal with that on a regular basis, and they have nowhere to turn with it. And everyone needs to associate with somebody. I mean, we're a social creature. We need to talk to like-minded people. And we're trying to provide that for people. We're trying to say, hey, we know what you're going through, and we want to do something about it. Not just sit here and bitch and moan. We want to get out there and do something and try to change minds and try to make a positive impact. Because these things affect our future. These things affect our children. They affect, one of my biggest beefs with religion is there is no thought for tomorrow. It's here and now. I mean, this is it. This is your chance to get into heaven. It's a prelude to something better. Well, I don't see it that way. I think the world goes on through our children, through the lessons we teach, and it affects the future, their lives. That's really what it's about. It's about here and now. We only get this one shot to do it. And waste it on your knees is to just waste it. I mean, you don't create an impact by doing things that way.
So you're active, and your wife is also active?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we have done several things. She actually used to host the karaoke things after our meetup, because they have like a Drinking Skeptically. Everyone gets, new members can come join, and things just like through Steel City Skeptics and stuff like that. And she would have karaoke parties afterwards, which kind of made people feel welcome and stuff, trying to spread it, the word, get new people, new membership. Cool. We did Ask an Atheist Day, where we went down onto the main street in the south side of Pittsburgh, and anyone who had a question can come up and ask an atheist a question. It was actually a very good time. We did the Pride Parade. We did.
Could you tell us about things that happened at those events, not just the events themselves, so we can hear about them? Like you said, you did Ask the Atheist. How was the response? What did people do? Did you have any memorable moments?
We've had several people come up and ask us things. Some people come up and ask funny stuff. What's the square root of blah blah blah, just being funny. But that just means that they're kind of just playing around, which is always nice. There was this one group of girls who came up, and the first thing they asked me was, "Well, don't you guys believe in Satan?" And I had a nice long discussion about no, that's what Christians believe. We don't believe in that either. That's a religious construct. And then I got into the whole thing about, well, your God is the one who gave Satan power, is he not? I mean, you blame the devil for all this stuff, and somehow it's to balance free will. I'm like, well, if you have God on one and devil on the other, I mean, how free really is your will? And they actually were very, very nice about it. We had a very nice talk, and they seemed actually interested, and I think it cleared up a little bit of a misconception, because there's a lot of that out there. And I think that's one of our big things too, is clearing up any misconceptions about atheists. There's a lot of misinformation going around about who we are and what we are about,
And so you went to a Pride Parade. I've done outreach at both things. I've never done it as actually ask an atheist, but I've done outreach for atheism, like having signs that say atheism deserves to be in public, and atheism is not a bad word.
Yeah.
But and your friendly neighborhood atheists, I have signs that say stuff like that. But and I've also done Pride Parades, but. Can you tell us, what was it like for you to do the Pride Parade? Why did you do it? What was the response, or
Well, I thought it was great. It was a show support. Because me being a heterosexual male, and Allison is bisexual. We wanted to show support from various points of view, and it was just a nice time. I mean, like I said, it was, to me, it was just like a parade. It was just showing pride, and hey, we're not afraid of the quote unquote stereotypes that go along with these kind of things. And of course, we did have a couple hecklers.
Oh, you did?
Some pictures of her standing up there with them, arguing with them and stuff. So that was actually kind of afforded that. That's a guilty pleasure, but. Yeah, it was just a really nice time. It was,
So did you get to teach anyone there, or is just people basically challenging you?
No. Actually, it was just more just like a community feel. I mean, most of the people were like-minded people, so it was just more of a community feel. There wasn't like a whole lot of opposition, too much that I had witnessed, other than the one group there. But it was. Pretty much, people. Even then, people weren't angry at these guys who were saying this stuff.
Yeah.
Over signs and all their other, hate and everything. But it was more that they were just kind of either poking fun at them, or just like, why are you trying to ruin a good time? Like making them look like the fool. It wasn't
right.
Like, anyone being hostile toward them. It was just, why are you protesting something like this? I mean, there was even like the Unitarian Church was there and things like that, who were part of the parade. So it's nice to see a different, diverse group of people there.
So there was just the one Christian group and then you there?
What do you mean for the
pride?
In the parade or
at the parade or whatever. Like when I did so just so you know, like I did an event at the Santa Ana Pride Parade, and it was me, the only atheist, group, and then there was 7 Christian groups.
Oh. Yeah.
So people were really happy that I came out, for atheism, because they had just getting bombarded by all these Christians saying that they love the gays anyways, and I said, well, they said, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't have to choose to love you. Of course I accept you because it's natural. I mean, there's nothing I don't have to say I can love the person without the sin or whatever, because there's no sin. So I mean, I but what is my opinion? I don't know. Same opinion I have for heterosexual people. I mean, people should have sex that they enjoy.
Well, being people. I mean, I don't know what, I mean, that's definitely had its roots in religion and their view on sexuality. But overall, like I said, it wasn't a very hostile environment. I didn't get a chance to talk to a whole lot of people. I was more, taking pictures and stuff.
Oh.
Of the parade and,
so you were in the parade? I had a whole booth.
No. We were just part of the crowd. I mean, we had a group that came along with us, and some of the members were in the parade itself, but I was more taking pictures and things. We were kind of on the outskirts of it, but there was a booth set up and things like that that the other group members did. We chose to do something different than that. Not everyone did it. We all kind of did something different.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
it was definitely a nice time, but I think it's important for people to get out there and do things and make it visible. I've always said that to be seen is to be relevant, and if you're out there putting a good face on atheism or whatever you choose to support, I mean, as long as you're being a respectful, good person, you can have disagreements, but if you come across as being some hostile jagoff, you're not gonna make much of an impact. I mean, I think it's good to show support.
Right. So, because I've had a lot of times where people will ask me when I've done outreach probably about 20 times. And I've had people, tell me, well, why are you here? If you don't believe in a God, why would you want to come and steal other people's right to have a God? It's so funny because they to me it's like, yeah, and why would you wear a cross? I mean, you already know you're a Christian. Why would you wear a cross so that everyone else knows? Well, the same reason I say I'm an atheist and have a right to. Because I want other people that are atheists to know I'm out here. And I'm also you want to show them there's support, like you said, meetups. A lot of people don't know there's meetups. They don't know there's places to go. They don't know that there's groups. They don't know there's, a couple of atheists, blog page that they can go to and feel a part of something. So, I mean, I don't do it just to go against religion. I do it for, other people that, need community.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's very important. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. I mean, you have to show a strong community. I mean, religion takes up so much of that for so many people. You have to offer people something else. I mean, you can't just, okay, there's no God, now bye, try to get along. Religion, as you well know, takes up so much of your life. It touches everything from who you are as a person to how you treat people to how you raise your children to how you just view the whole world. I mean, whenever you see things through the God goggles, things look a lot different, and you have to replace that with something. I mean, religion's very, very powerful, and I know a lot of people think, oh, it's just a delusion, and at the end it is, but to these people, it's not. When you really believe that, man, it is not just a delusion. That is, it is who you are.
Yeah.
You become a Christian. You don't just believe in Christianity. You are a Muslim. I mean, this is who you are. And
yeah.
You need to combat that. I mean, and you have to have, positive things for people to go to, I mean, that's why I think things like Sunday assemblies and stuff are important. There's a lot of people who still want that community, who just leave the church, and they miss that. They miss the songs, the gatherings, and things. And, and I think that's important for people. You have to have, family picnics, anything like that. I mean, I think people should get out there and just start putting these things together and just be proactive and get things.
Yeah, I personally don't like anything close to a Sunday assembly because, for me personally, because I don't like anything that's church-like to me. But this is what I always tell people, my atheism is my atheism. I do not think it's the only atheism. It's the best atheism. It somehow is the only way to have atheism. I think that when people, are different atheists, what do you think of them? I think they're an atheist. If they don't believe in gods, then they're an atheist. How they choose to have all the other things, is fine with me. I mean, I'm against, racism, sexism, homophobia. So if you have those things, but I mean, what you do, as an atheist is good. Do whatever you feel is right. I would never go to that stuff because that's not for me. But I don't inherently. I don't think it's wrong because as long as you don't believe, I support atheists. So I'm not. I don't, really go there. There's not that I never would. It's just not my thing. I feel no need to go there. But like I said, that's why I think it's a good idea for other, people who do want to. I mean, I would just not. I would definitely steer clear of calling it things like church. Like when you hear like the atheist church, I don't think that's inappropriate thing. I think that can be problematic because then you start making it a religion and you buy into that whole ideology, and I think that's where a mistake could be. But as far as it's something else, I actually some atheists disagree with me on this when you break down the numbers of the population and say atheists are only like 2.something%. I forget what it was last time I checked. But I count the nons. I count agnostics, anyone who does not hold that belief. I count. I don't care if people call themselves atheists or not. I mean, to me, it's not. It's just a label, and I don't think, if you don't feel comfortable saying you're an atheist, but feel comfortable coming out and saying that you're not religious. Don't think you have to tiptoe around other people's beliefs, and I think that's the important thing. So when they say, the nons, I count them as being, going in the right direction where we're, heading. I mean, I think that's a very positive thing. I mean, if someone wants to say, oh, I'm not an atheist, I'm an agnostic. Hey, fine, we can disagree on the terms, and I can, we can argue about that. But at the end of the day, you're also not a theist. And I think when you stay away from that, then that's a step in the right direction. So the rest of it comes down to just philosophical discussions, fine, but you've already dropped that dogma. So now we can have a discussion. I think that's the important part. Yeah, like I said, I don't believe in labeling other people because also I'm an anarchist, so I believe everyone owns themselves. So I don't try to tell people what's right for them. What I try to do is say what my position is and why I choose it and why I believe it's reasonable, because that I do believe is my right to do. But I don't. I mean, I know what you're saying. I don't really like anything to do with religion, but that's also my personal stance. I'm extremely anti-religionist. So I think that it's to me it's like a plague. I mean, it only produces. But I'm very also anti-pseudoscience, anti-pseudo-history. I mean, one friend of mine who's an accommodationalist, he actually would probably consider himself to be a religious atheist. He actually teaches Sunday school and all this, and he just tries to push science. I would vomit to go do that. But I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong. Like I said, I don't think there's a right atheist, like you said, or a right way, to do it. I personally don't like that. But I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with him doing that. That's why we're still friends. I mean, if I didn't really, like it, I wouldn't be friends with him. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it. For him, it would be wrong for me. But I think that he tried to ask me like, well, if this is how I believe, because see, I've heard this before too, where I've been told, because I hate the thinking, but they say you can't hate the thinking without hating the person, and I disagree. Where I think the difference, which I think I try to tell why it's not the same as what Christians say, because Christians say hate the sinner, not the sin, and I try to explain that. What the difference is, they're saying hate the behavior, not hate the person. But a person's behavior is what the person is. A thought is not what you are, but your behavior is. In other words, if you rape, you're a rapist. I can hate you as a rapist because your behavior is rape. If you go and kill people and do genocide, you're a murderer. I can hate you because you behave as a murderer. But now if you think that people don't have rights, you haven't gone and hurt them, I can hate that thinking without hating you, because you haven't done the behavior of hurting people. So
I can definitely say that. Like I said, I would blame the ideology that fuels these behaviors as opposed to, because they definitely have an influence. As in the one blog I wrote, I actually did a talk at BostonCon this past year, Allison and I, and my point was beliefs are not benign. They do have impact. And when you have an ideology such as, racism,
right,
and all things, they are harmful. Now, people can break away from that, but you still have that effect. It took me a long time from my religious indoctrination to see something like an upside down cross or something like, and not feel a little twinge of just, it took a long time for that part to go away. I mean, not that I ever bought into that, but it's still in the back of your mind sometimes.
So do you think do you think you can hate racism without hating the racist? Or do you so in other words, like I said, do you see it like I see it? I can hate a thinking that a person has, but when it's a behavior, then it's hard for me to disconnect. If you hate the behavior, you almost automatically are hating the person.
Yeah, I do see it difficult. The most honest question or answer I could give would be I try not to. I mean, it is difficult to make that separation. It's difficult to look at a picture of Hitler and not, immediately hate him for the atrocities that he was responsible for. I mean, it's hard to see the man at that point when you know what they were capable of. I mean, it is very difficult, and I try not to, but I think sometimes it's bound to happen. I mean,
well, I know, but I'm saying, yeah, I guess I maybe didn't explain it right. I do not think it's really possible to hate behaviors and not hate the person. I think those things go together, because how you behave, that's what I was trying to say. I think that's why I disagree when Christians say I hate the sinner, not the sin, because I don't think that's possible, really. When you're hating someone doing a behavior, then you are hating what the person is. Someone thinking, though, something, an idea, like if I say I hate rape, I can hate rape as that women deserve to get raped. In other words, if you say women deserve to get raped if they're wearing short skirts or they're naked or whatever, I can hate that thinking without hating you. But if you're actually going rape, it's very hard for me to say I hate women being raped and then you're a rapist. I mean, I think that's.
Yeah, well then you're a rapist. Then it becomes synonymous with who you are.
Exactly my point. So that's why I think, because they try to say, because they say, well, you're no different than the Christian. No, I'm definitely different. I hate your deities. I hate your bigoted, sexist, homophobic, genocidal book. I don't hate you as a person. I think that actually you're a victim of the religion.
Yeah. I guess like if someone who was raised by a Klans member grows up to become a Klans member, I hate the ideology that made this person a racist, but they're also now a racist and committing these crimes. I mean, this is who they are. So yeah, I mean, and I guess that's kind of goes to my point to where beliefs aren't benign. They do have an impact. Of who you are. We're a product of these things, of how we see the world and how we interact with one another. And when you have such a corrosive ideology like religion, and I know I pick on religion, but you have to. Religion is unlike almost any other ideology. The way it dominates. I mean, it has all the aspects of all the other ones. It has genocide. It has racism in there. It has xenophobia. It has all these other aspects in there already. I mean, it's almost like a self-contained book of just every possible bad impulse a person could have.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's funny how some people try to go, but what about Buddhism? Well, did you know that Buddhism was sexist? Did you know he's also homophobic? I mean,
there are Buddhist ideologies that are just not what people try to. That's not a religion of peace either.
No.
I mean, any dogmatic ideology is going to have these same problems because they share the flaws of the people who created them, and then they just get propagated by people who see the benefit in spreading this stuff, and then of course it gets twisted even more. I mean, the Christianity of today is nothing like the traditional Christianity. I mean, these people like the moderates, I think they claim the more moderation than they are, but they still, in a lot of sense, are still fundamentalists. I mean, they have to be. They still have to believe, to be a Christian, that Jesus was resurrected from the dead, and it's still, and they still can't even justify that point. I mean, there's still some fundamentals that have to be followed in order to be a Christian. So when they start getting into traditional Christianity, I don't know what they're talking about, because when I hear traditional Christianity, I see the Inquisitions. I see, burning of heretics and apostates. I mean, that's and the way women were treated as far as the witchcraft. I mean, they lived in subjugation and fear every day of their lives, and the neighbor could just say, because they're mad at them, "Hey, this person's a witch." I mean,
well, I know a lot of people also don't.
Sheer terror that religion has caused.
Well, even like you talking
is enough.
Like you were talking about witches, a lot of people don't know that they just think the Salem witch trials was the worst thing. Actually, over in Europe, it was way worse, and especially Germany. There's towns in Germany where every single female in the whole town practically, that wasn't, specifically married, a single female was killed. That they had to go to other towns to find women to marry because they had burned them all alive. I mean, it's horrific.
Yeah, and every religion has that, where the women were part of the spoils of war.
Oh yeah.
And they were taken as concubines and slaves. They'd wipe out all the males and all the as the Bible quotes, the women who knew them, to lay with them. Take the children for yourself. Take the young women.
Right. Yeah. And so that exactly my point. I told some person, this Christian, I said, well, it had to be children, not like you just said, not women. Because it's not like someone was sticking their fingers in them and finding out they were virgins. They knew they were virgins because they were young enough. You get an 8-year-old girl, you figure it's probably virgin. So I mean, it wasn't like they were going around checking everybody.
Yeah, and just the idea of it, and that's where I think I get into kind of apologetics, because I found apologetics to be the most disgusting, dishonest form of casuistry you could possibly imagine, because they justify these things. And not only do they say, okay, fine, we're going to, divorce ourselves from that and stick to the good parts, which I can actually have a little more respect for. They make apologies for these things and try to hide behind excuse after excuse, whether it be translation errors, whether it be, that was just the, rabbinic laws of the time. Sorry, that's not. Then you're saying that at one point this was okay, commanded by your God. And then you're basically, to me, that says, well, if God says that raping children is okay, then it's going to be moral because God said so. You're admitting that. That's exactly what you're saying. Oh, no, that's not what we're saying. Then what are you saying? You're making excuses, these things. I think apologetics needs to be attacked on its own grounds. And that's, I think, what my biggest issue with religion is. You get your William Lane Craigs out there, you get your Ravi Zachariases, all pointing a finger at, the atrocities of atheists, and this is the end game of atheism. Every excuse they can for their God. They would, as I was saying, apologists would rather destroy knowledge altogether than relinquish their faith. And I see it at every turn with them. And to me, it's just disgusting. And you see it now. They're going after our children. They're going after the schools with the creationism nonsense, because they know that's where the key to religion lies. For it to keep going is to indoctrinate children. And that's why I think one of the biggest reasons why I do what I do is because I want to bring awareness to that. And it has to, it has to stop. Because it ends with the children. That atheism holds the key demographic in young people in college right now. There's a much higher percentage of people willing to leave their faith behind in college because of education, and that's when they haven't been out there and been indoctrinated, as thoroughly yet. It's still younger in their lives. They haven't gone through the whole church system yet. I mean, there's a progress. When you look at the children's Bible, you see what they're doing in there. I mean, they don't have Moses slaughtering thousands of people. They don't mention that. They point to the finger at, they're worshiping a false god. Look how terrible these people are. They're already taught to justify these people being killed. I mean, you see the Noah's Ark. I mean, they're already taught to ignore common sense, science, reasoning. They're taught at an early age. And by the time they get to college and you're introduced to philosophy, that's the scariest part for the Christian right, is to have children exposed to this. And that's why they want to get them early. They want to get them before science has a chance to corrupt them. And in humanism, I mean, they call humanism out by name. I mean, humanism is basically worshiping yourself as God. I mean, everything they teach them is about worship. Sheep, you're dirty, you're filthy. Don't question. You have to follow this. We'll guide you with it. Your inner voice of reason, which is a blog I'm trying to finish. Actually, it's to say that when you start doubting your faith, that's your inner voice of reason trying to say something, and they're taught through Bible studies and things that's just God texting you. I mean, they get you at every turn. I mean, it's a very, very dishonest, very, very direct method of attack that they have to keep people in the flock, and that's what I'm trying to go after. That's, I think, my main point. If we can get people aware of that, I think that's going to be the biggest benefit for the future. Because as Sam Harris says, I mean, the technology we have now, the people who have access to it, it's scary. I mean, it's scary who has access to this kind of technology.
Yeah, and you brought up college, and for me that's a big deal because I was a devout believer in God. Never questioned God, didn't know an atheist, never read an atheist book. And I had became a drug addict and an alcoholic. Had my heart stop at 15 from smoking crack, and at 17 I had my liver fail, and I ended up in a hospital and was like dying. Had to have like intravenous and stuff, and I was very sick. Anyways, I got to the point that I decided to be sober. Well, I was a Christian, and I stayed sober for like about 18 years, and thought, I should go help people get sober. But I was a Christian, and I wrote a book and of poetry about addiction and just getting sober and stuff. And then I went to go to college to be a drug and alcohol counselor, and they told me because the addiction field in general has a lot to do with spirituality and religion that I needed to take 2 religious courses, one on world religions and then one on understanding the Bible. And I was cool with the course understanding the Bible because as being a Christian, I mean, great, I'm going to get an A in this class, and then the world religion, I was pissed because why do I need to know? They're all wrong, But which is so funny now because I didn't know shit about it. I knew nothing about religion, absolutely freaking zero. I mean, I don't even today still know that much about Catholicism, because I was an evangelical, Pentecostal, whatever, like non-denominational Christian, but my family. So, I mean, I don't even know, even to this day, that much. But then, oh God, I knew nothing. I mean, if you had said, tell me one thing about Buddhism, I would go, there was a Buddha? I mean, I could have told you nothing, but I knew it was 100% wrong. Even though it's just so funny to me how religion, they're so sure of things they have absolutely no clue about. And that's where I was. But so I think it's important, like you said, college. I mean, because the moment I took the religious course, I found out, wow, a lot of these religions are kind of the same. First time ever, I realized, and if they're all fake, maybe mine's not totally true. And then, but the biggest shocker was taking the class on the Bible. I had actually read the Bible twice, the whole way through, because I was a devout Christian. I read the King James all the way through and read the NIV all the way through, and I owned an NIV Bible. And I took the class, and I felt like I was drowning. I mean, oh my God, it was like the floor was quicksand, and I was sinking in fast. They were throwing out stuff like, the Exodus was written first, not Genesis. I'm like, what? And they're saying it's impossible that Moses wrote any books of the Bible, because even if you read the books themselves, they say Moses was a great man, back in his day. And he said if you read some of his, I was just like, choking, dying. I mean, I was like, here I thought I was going to get my easiest A in college, and I was the class I was almost dropping out of. And it was absolutely shocking. I think that it's amazing, how uninformed, truly, believers usually are. That's why when people say, don't ever teach, believers facts, I'm like, that's exactly what turned me atheist. I didn't get halfway through that class, and I became an atheist. Halfway through the class on the Bible, I got to the point where they said that it's impossible for the snake of the garden to be Satan, to also be Lucifer, that all those that cannot be the same person. And they explained it, like you said with philosophy, when they explained why it can't. First off, in the garden, it clearly says in Genesis that the serpent was the craftiest of the animals that God had made in the garden.
Yeah.
So it's impossible that is then a being come from somewhere else. So Paul is completely wrong. And that blew me away. It was like I'm reading it and going, "Are you sure it's a wrong translation? How can it be actually saying this? What the?" It was like, and they're like, and they told us in the class, just think about it. So here's this snake that can talk, or the serpent that can talk, and it's intelligent. So. Okay, so then it goes on, and it has to be, slither on the ground and bite at man's feet or whatever. How did it reprocreate? If it was only one being, not a bunch of them, how did God give it an Eve? I was like, I felt like
The question in apologetics tries to make excuses for, of course, we can just assume, well, that's not what it says.
Right, yeah, so...
There.
Right, and then I could go on and on. I'm not going to right now, but because this is your interview, but there was just tons of things that they said, and I was like, it hit me all of a sudden. So I went from total belief to, I realized it hit me, this is all bullshit. This is really all a bunch of fucking lies. I mean, and right then and there, I didn't even know what the word atheist was. I just knew I didn't believe in God no more, and I didn't believe in the Bible. I was done. I was like, this is just bullshit.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, same thing with Bart Ehrman. He was going through, to a seminary with Tom Alden. He just read it, and then he mentioned that they tell you how to explain those away. I mean, how could you possibly go through that and not have the same experience you did? Just be like, wait a minute. I mean, how can you I can't do it.
I can't do it either.
That off in yourself to say, I'm just going to believe this anyway. I can't do it. And I think it's harmful for people to do that. It's an ability that scares me.
Yeah.
It does really scare me. People can do this.
I don't know how they can either, because I really like truth. And so I seek truth wherever it is. And it was I didn't have cognitive dissonance. I mean, I had more like emotional overload. What I would say I had. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the worst thing of my life. I'm going to lose my family. My whole life is going to change. I'm going to lose friends. Which ended up actually happening pretty much.
Yeah,
but
I mean, you can't continue to you can't be dishonest with yourself. That's the hardest part. I don't know. My mom still says she doesn't believe I'm an atheist. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Because I do know quite a bit about the Bible. Well, whenever I was younger, I did know quite a bit about the Bible. And my mother, I was supposed to go to, there was a monastery by my house, and they wanted me to go there for preschool and things like that. And I was not about to be a priest, and I kind of politely turned that down. But I did read the Bible. Religion's always been fascinating, but I never put in, the belief behind it. I always found it fascinating that people can believe it. I thought, okay, in ancient cultures, it may have been reasonable.
Right.
But just the things in the Bible, compared to now, they just conflict. so much. And like I said, I don't have that kind of ability to shut it off. And if I would have lost, family and friends over it, then it's tough to say. It's kind of like, well, it's on them then, because I can't pretend.
Yeah.
We can just, like, how I deal with it now with family is we just pretty much don't talk about it, which I'm okay with. I don't want to be at Thanksgiving dinner and start upsetting everyone, and because these turn into ugly fights pretty quick. And you just can't question people's faith. I mean, it's sacrosanct. It's almost, if someone's a Muslim, it's racism to question Islam. I mean, it's crazy the way people view it. So I do let it go, and they know my views and I know theirs, and they don't push anything really on me. So
you brought up a point that I want to address too. Even if you don't challenge them, just you saying you don't believe, they see as a challenge. Because I've had people before where I don't say anything. They say, well, you believe in God, right? And I'd say, no, I don't. They're like, well, why not? It's like I just attacked them. And I didn't attack them at all. I just said what I believe. I mean, I think, have you ever experienced that?
Oh, yeah. I'm just glad that my family isn't traditional Christian, or else I would have been stoned to death by now. But I'm glad that they can bypass that, and they, can say, okay, because they're not deep. I mean, with the exception of my mother, but my brother and sister they don't go to church or anything like that. They just, but I have experienced it from other people. There's a few people at work, in fact, that I do talk to, and then right away, they're just, they just attack. The one guy, me and him talk about cosmology and physics, and not that I know that much about it, but it's still interesting to talk about. But he rejects evolution because he's religious. And me and him get into it. I'm like, how can you? And he goes, no, I can't believe that. I'm Christian. I said, that doesn't make sense to me. And I said, you have all this knowledge about physics and all these other in cosmology, but you reject that science. I mean, so it's not quite the same thing as him yelling in my face, but it does show that right away they're willing to shut down things based on their religion. They're just willing to shut down, is not even to hear it. And he goes, I was interested in learning about it. And of course, I'm looking at it as, okay, I'll introduce them to Origin of Species and things like that, Jerry Coyne, Richard Dawkins, and maybe that'll kind of push them. Because, just like you said, when you're faced with another, actual truth,
yeah,
you question what you've always assumed was true. And I mean, I think information is definitely helpful in that sense. So I'm going to push it that way. I'm not going to push any atheist angle. I'm going to push, is he definitely interested in science and things. And I think when you hold one in one hand and religion in the other, they can't coexist. The non-overlapping magisteria doesn't hold up when they're at odds with each other like that. They do clash, and I don't see how people can avoid it. One has to give way to the other, and that's of course where you fall into pseudoscience, is when faith is able to overtake reason and science. Then that's when. But if you want to believe and push your belief in the background in the sake of your science, then that's at least a start in the right direction. Then there's hope for somebody at that point.
Yeah, but I also find it pretty, like you said, bizarre that people could do that too. Like, my mom is a devout believer in Jesus and God and everything, and she's so such a believer. She'll put like oil on the door frames and to keep out the demons, Yeah. But yet she says that she believes, that evolution is true and the Earth is 14 billion years old or whatever. 4.5 billion, and the universe is 14 I think and a half billion or whatever. And so she has no problem with, like you said, all the cosmology, all the science. But then somehow still can believe in God. I just find that just as disingenuous. How do you do that? I don't understand that either. I don't like you said about moderates. I don't get fundamentalists, because I feel like fundamentalists say faith is better than reason, but I feel like moderates do both. They actually don't have enough faith, obviously, because they're not a fundamentalist. Because I feel like that really a religion would be fundamentalist. So you don't have enough faith to be a fundamentalist, but you don't have enough reason either to let the beliefs go. So it's like you have no faith or reason, which I don't see why that's a better position.
Yeah, well, they end up accommodating their faith they basically explain their Christianity into a form of deism. If you hear the cosmological arguments for God, all the best they can hope for, which is still a stretch, is the deistic.
Right.
If there's a deistic God, then there's not a theistic God, because the deistic God does not get involved. Well, you're explaining away all the necessity of your God. I mean, it is just an ever-collapsing pocket of ignorance. And if you start explaining things like the order of the universe, we have to be careful not to explain natural phenomenon as ordered because it's beneficial to our type of life, or because it's good or something, and chaos when it's hostile to our life. And that's exactly what they do. Just because it's good for us doesn't make it orderly. I mean, this small little pocket that we live in is so, we can't survive anywhere else in the vast universe. It's all a complete waste of space for us, and we will probably never reach it.
I think it's a pretty insane belief to believe in even a deism, that something would create life for us. Because if you just look at the history, if you believe in science at all, you believe that all forms of life that have lived on this planet, 90 to 99% have died. I mean, have gone extinct. I think it's like 5 mass extinctions. I mean, if that's not intelligent design, that's not how you design something good, that everything dies, several times over. That's not well ordered. That's not unless the order is to constantly kill things. I mean, that's not well ordered anything. I mean, so I just find that to be immediately ludicrous. And like you said,
and just the arrogance it takes to think that all this was created for you anyway. I mean, all created for my little measly 80 so years of life. I mean, come on, we're talking about billions and billions of years, and it somehow matters of my 80 years of existence. I mean, it just, when you think of it on scales like that, it just doesn't make sense. It just, the intelligence of the design goes out of the window.
Yeah, and another thing too, it's really interesting is why they don't have a better attitude if they don't really believe evolution. I don't know why they don't just say I don't know. Like, because I've talked to Ray Comfort on the street, and what, you saw that?
I saw the picture,
yeah.
Of it.
So he didn't like talking to me that much because of me being an axiological atheist. Most of my positions, can nail him to the wall, because he's used to talking to atheists that don't know what their morality is. I do. He's used to talking to atheists that don't understand how to explain, their opinions, or don't know how to attack God the way I do. I attack God at a moral and a value stance, and he doesn't even know how to go there, because he tries to act like Christians are more moral. So then a lot of atheists, he's able to make them like swim around, or feel uncomfortable, because he's good at that. But with me, I feel totally comfortable. Yeah, let's bring up morality. Hell yeah. Oh, I can tell you how it's natural and how it's all mammalian animals. I can tell you about empathy. I can tell you about how empathy actually is not even a emotion. It's a biological response that happens in the brain. And about emotional intelligence, and how our actually there is no such thing in general as reason. Everything is actually connected to emotions, and our emotional regulations is something that we do over animals. And the fact that we are animals and morality comes from that, we're still better in the fact that there's one thing that we can do that animals cannot. We can actually plan or fear for the future. This is they do this sometimes by a response, but we can do it with cognitive. If I tell you 10 years from now I'm going to murder your child, you're going to be hurt emotionally for the whole 10 years. Right. So that's something that animal doesn't conceive, and so there's a moral disgust that a human can have that an animal doesn't. It's more reactionary. But anyways, but one of the things I told him, because I know a lot of stuff about morality, but like you said, I'm not as good at cosmology and some of the stuff. And he goes, well, how can you prove the origin of the universe? And I said, who said I have to? Who said well, why do I have to? He says, well, you're saying you don't know? And I said, yeah, I don't know. He goes, how can you live with that? I said, I don't know a lot of things I can live with. I don't need to say that I know it has to be God because I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I definitely think morality is where philosophy has the most say in things. When they start talking about that, when you start mixing morality with like law giving, and he's a lawgiver, and we all know the Ray Comfort stories, a painter painting, all that nonsense. That doesn't work for morality.
No.
Divine command theory is a failed and has been failed as far as an ethical system for a long, long time.
Sorry, I don't even like it called an ethical system. Because I don't believe that it even has the right to even be in that category. I think it's. I know what you're saying. They try to use it as one, but even in college, and it wasn't even a religious college, atheist college. They said that we're going to tell you about this, but this is not valid. This is not even morality. If you believe this, then you don't even have a morality. It's just saying whatever the deed. I really hate, I know you're not trying to support it. I'm just saying.
No, I know. I just needed to give it some kind of a classification here, so we all know we're on the same page.
Right.
It's really not. I mean, you take any morality away.
Yes, it's not morality.
They like to consider it a deontological ethic, but it doesn't belong in that category.
Yeah.
At all. And then when they start with the, you can't. I would hold that you can't account for morality, but then when you talk to them, they form a lot of the same values, on the surface, but then you want to say, oh well, God is good, God is this. You're trying to say that you have a standard of morality, but God is not, cannot be judged by those standards. Then that's not morality. You can't
exactly.
You can't use this as a standard of morality, but say it's not subject to the same moral judgments that you have. I mean, you're not talking the same language here. You're not playing the same game. It's it's the same thing by saying God is beyond space and time, but then they want to offer empirical evidence for their God. I mean, well, this shows that there's a God. No, you're not playing the same game. You're taking it, out of the realm of anything we can even discuss. Again, that's where we go into the agnostic part of it. You're talking nonsense again. It's gibberish.
Yes, exactly.
Not a coherent statement at all by saying such a thing. And that's where I think I need to point people out, because they always say, oh, well, God is love. God is perfect justice. God is mercy. Justice and mercy are contradictory to one another in terms of the quote-unquote absolute perfect sense. I don't even know what they mean by that. I don't know what perfect adds to love or justice, or I don't know what any of that even means.
No, I agree with you, but you're talking fast about philosophy that people may not know. Could you please explain why? I understand, but I'm not the normal person. So could you explain? I do agree with you that you can't have mercy, ultimate mercy, and ultimate justice together. But can you please explain that? Because I agree with you, and I think that they don't get why that's an incoherent statement.
Well, when you have, if you have ultimate mercy, then you can't have ultimate justice, because if you let someone off the hook for killing someone, that's merciful to the person. But then you're not serving justice. That's not just to the act that he just committed. If you have perfect justice and no mercy, then you could easily just say, well, an eye for an eye, I'm going to slaughter you in the street in front of everybody. That's not merciful either.
Right.
Some people might consider that justice. There's too many variables, but even when you just take them at their basic terms, they can't coexist. They can't. You have to have one or the other. I mean, it can't be where God is all merciful and all justice at the same time. It is contradictory, and that's why I can say that God does not, that particular belief in a God does not exist, because when you explain him through his attributes, and his attributes are contradictory, then you have me no choice but to say then your God cannot exist. If all you can give me is attributes and they're contradictory, logic says, law of non-contradiction says it can't happen that way.
Right, yeah, but the problem, like you said, though, too, right there is, I've actually talked to this atheist, who told you, the one that's religious, a religious atheist, and I was telling him about the law of non-contradiction, and he says, well, I don't believe in the law of contradiction. And I was like, oh, God. And I told him, I said, well, listen to this, okay? You not believing in it doesn't make it not true. I go, let me explain it to you in the simplest way that you can probably understand. Okay, two things that are not reasonable cannot both happen. I said, think of it this way. The planet Pluto, okay, cannot be existing in space and in my pocket at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you say that it is, I don't have to look at your pocket to know that that's false. The same thing they don't get when they say contradictory things about God. You just disproved it yourself. I don't need to.
Yeah, well, and we know what you mean when you say the planet Mars. We can, or whatever, we can point to it and say,
right.
Of course it can fit in your bucket.
Right.
And when someone starts questioning the laws of logic, and I try to stay away from any kind of absolute. I think it's, under most circumstances, absolutes are a foolish way to go. But when it comes to logic, that's how things operate as we see them. This is how we know anything. This is the laws that we follow, that we see. If you start questioning these laws, then you have to question every single thing back down to the, I think, therefore I am. I mean, you have to go back down to the very. So
please explain that. Yeah. Yeah, please explain that a little bit better, because I know you're still kind of talking like someone knows philosophy. Just a little bit slower, because someone may not even know that last statement. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but...
Yeah, I apologize. I'm used to, like I said, I used to rambling sometimes. But
well, I don't got to keep rambling. I'm just saying, just make sure that you explain a little bit better for people that just act like I don't know what you're talking about. So... Yeah, well, so I agree with you. So logic, because I think the problem is people think that logic is a thought thing, but it's like people told me before that math is an idea. No, math is actually a tangible reality, because you can actually look at, in the real world, 2 apples, and thus you have 2. And if you have 2 more apples in the real world, you now have 4. So math is actually can be made into an ontological state of reality. Of observation, so it's not just a made up concept, and I see logic the same way. You can look at, like you said, the natural world, and you can find out what's reasonable and what works within the laws of the natural world. But go ahead and explain it.
Yeah, well, no, I think you definitely was hitting on it there. It is an abstract, but it's a truth about the world. It's the way these things work, and it's our recognition. So when people say laws of logic, it's not a law that things obey. It's our recognition of why this is, why a rock is a rock and not a rock. I mean, it can't be both at the same time, and that's recognition of how these work. So people really get confused about the ambiguity of the term law, as if law has to be prescribed. It's descriptive.
Right.
Which means it describes. It's not prescriptive that these things have to follow the laws of logic. It's how they work by their very nature. It's how these things are. And and when people say, "Oh, well, where did the laws come from?" Well, then you're not understanding. We're missing one point of what we mean by law here, and that's where I think we need to clear. The theists get away with this all the time with ambiguous terminology. Equivocation, and they do it all the time. And
can you please explain what equivocation is?
That's basically when a word has more than one meaning. Like if you say, for example, when we talked about faith before, someone could say a religious faith is different than, as I said, faith that my children are going to clean a room, or faith in humanity. Those are used different. If you take the word, even a larger one, let's say club. The club could be a place to go dance, or something to hit someone over the head with. I mean, there's different meanings to different words, and religion, and it's a fallacy to use equivocation in an argument, because you're purposely changing what the word means.
Right.
Argument, and when you do that, you've committed a fallacy, and they do it all the time. I mean, their argument is based on that fallacy a lot. When they start using things like faith, belief. They try to hijack these terms. So when you say, "Oh, well, you believe that there's no God," I personally say I believe that your claim that your God exists is false. That's exactly what I tell people. I don't have to say I don't believe in God, because I don't know what God is. For you to say that I don't believe it, to say I don't believe in God, is to say there's something I can point at and say, "Oh, I don't believe in the tooth fairy." I know what a tooth fairy is supposed to be. When you say God, it's your religion, first of all, because gods are different. As you know, among all the different religions, they have a similar thread, but you can definitely point to this one and say, this is this, this is Neptune, this is, and when you say that, you just don't believe in God. No, I believe the claim that your God exists is false. That's where I'm at with it. I don't believe your claim.
Right.
I don't have to say I don't believe your God. They try to use God like it's mutually exclusive to their religion.
Or all religion, yeah.
And you get to Yahweh, and But just one thing I wanted to hit on, I forgot to earlier, is about the empirical evidence for God. Christianity, and they're not held accountable on it enough. Christianity has one fatal mistake in that they do have empirical evidence in the form of Jesus. That is supposedly accepted as God in human form. And that's, of course, why they hold on to Jesus so much. That, the whole story, it has to be true. Their whole religion is based on it. If, just as even Paul said, if the resurrection of Jesus was false, then Christianity has nothing to stand on.
All right.
And they do have an empirical claim of through the form of Jesus. And when we look at the evidence for that, it's well, let's just say it's very shaky at best. It's eyewitness accounts, which is pretty much the large thing. But I would go a step further. Robert Price used the term one time. It's like the yellow brick road fallacy. Well, if there's no Emerald City, then where does the yellow brick road go? Well, the yellow brick road is part of the story. You say 500 eyewitnesses, that's what the Bible said. That's part of the story.
All right.
You can't necessarily say that. So what evidence do you have for that? Jesus existing is an empirical claim.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Well, and being an axiological atheist, one of the things that we do is we break down every single thing. Every single thing. Nothing is attached to other things until it's objectively done itself. In other words, like if you say that your house is worth something, we would break down a whole bunch of different categories of not just your house, because we do internal, external, and systemic. So your house is valuable for the wood it is. Your house is valuable because it gives you shelter. Your house is valuable because of the neighborhood it's in. Your house is valuable in a long term because it's going to last for 50 years or 100 years. Anyway, so the same thing to me when the God argument. When you say, even if I can let you say that Jesus is real. I can let you say that Jesus walked on water or whatever. That doesn't mean that allows you to say he's a god. What if he's just a magician? Or what if he just had some magical power that we don't know? That still doesn't mean that he's a god. I mean, everything, like Moses could have parted the Red Sea, and that still doesn't prove that God did it. What if Moses had some ability? I mean, it's ludicrous to me that all these jumps they do, like you said. To me, I would say if you show me a yellow brick road, all you've proved to me is there's a yellow brick road. Right. You don't even prove to me why. The problem is they keep jumping. They say it's a yellow brick road, thus there has to be a destination. What if the whole point was like, have you ever seen some of the Native American things where they build a circle, like a spiral, and they just walk this circle of sand?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the road doesn't go anywhere. I mean, so it's actually a jump of non-logic or a fallacy to say that it has to have a destination. Why? You've already assumed things that you cannot prove. If you show me a yellow brick road and there's actually a yellow brick road, all that shows me is there's a yellow brick road. It does not show me as a destination. What if the whole point was you walk to the end and you realize that you've passed through a portal or something, in other words, like you said before, they like to add all this stuff, that's incoherent. And I would say too that we don't even know why they built it. Maybe someone built it because they're an artist. Maybe it has no spiritual meaning at all. Show me yellow brick road. Why should I assume that the only conclusion is the magic?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I definitely know what you mean. And with the Jesus thing, once there's no evidence for that, now we're not talking about Christianity anymore. Now we're taking a step back, and that's what they keep doing. And they'll jump from one to the other. They're constantly moving from deism to theism, and then, because Jesus, you said Jesus did this, the loaves and fishes. Oh, that must be God. No, you still have to make that jump. And again, we go back to the thing earlier, like I said, with the, we go to, now because of this button, and there's a supernatural, and you're just creating more questions.
Right, yeah. Every single point they make should be challenged. Every single point.
Right.
Nothing should be allowed to be assumed. In other words, like, philosophy, nothing should be a priori.
No. Especially when it comes to things like the unknown. We'll just use that as a broad sense. You got to make it defined and known before you can even reference such a thing. Otherwise, it's just an unknown, and it's okay for me to say, or you to say, I don't know.
Right.
And that's not a position of ignorance. You're saying that we don't know because we don't. There's a lot of cosmological models out there that show origins of the universe and everything else, but they're all just. But there's one thing they have in common: none of them require some supernatural deity as an explanation. Maybe none of them is right, but we're already moving away from that. Only the Christians and apologists still hold on to this. I mean, that's why they don't want information out there. That's why they don't want it taught, because then they have a harder time to dance and jump from spot to spot. It's like a hop, skip, and a jump. It's from here to deism to then almost a pantheist point, God's nature. I mean, all you're doing is just relabeling already known phenomenon at that point. I mean, that's to me a move of desperation. You're not giving me anything I can work with.
Yeah, and in fact, in front of I counter protested the Creation Conference in Santa Ana with Ray Comfort, with Ken Ham, and with Eric Coven. And Eric Coven came out and tried to challenge me.
Oh, jeez.
It was so funny.
Did he use his? You can't account for logic or math or something.
Oh, he tried to do a bunch of stuff. But all that stuff I feel pretty comfortable with. Even though apologetics is not something I'm good, but talking about philosophy or certain things, I especially axiology stuff and value, I feel real comfortable. So it was funny though. He tried to say, "Oh well, sounds like you're saying evolution is God," and I go, "Only if you're misusing that word. I mean, if you want to call it evolution God, you can go ahead, but that's actually improper, and I don't see how that supports your argument for God." He's like, "Oh, that's a good one."
Yeah. Well, I mean, all they do is talk. I mean, they're taught how to do this stuff, and and they always bring up the same, just talking in circles. And what you said, evolution is God. Well, that's not what you said. That's not what I said at all. And if you think that, because they really do just see God everywhere. I mean, they do. They're not being the God responsible for any of this stuff. If that's how you see it, then then there's no point. We can't even have a discussion because your dogma won't let you even see past simple definitions. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
That's like, I think it's incoherent too, and they say stuff like, "Well, don't you see God in a baby's smile?" It's like, I don't even. What the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah, I have 3 kids, and I haven't seen God in any of them. It doesn't mean any less to me or something. I don't understand that either. Why you have to add this something ad hoc to make it more valuable? I don't understand. I mean, to me, it's almost like Christianity is nihilism, because there's no meaning to life for them if there is no God. Like you said, they see in the smile of a baby and the birth of a baby. Those are meaningful on their own. I don't know why they can't just take comfort in that. They have to add something more to make it more special. To me, that would diminish it. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But it seems like you're taking away from the meaning of it then.
Yeah. And then like you said, nihilism too. That's one of the things that some of the Ray Comfort and whatever tries to say. But an axiological atheist is actually the anti-position of nihilism. Nihilism is on the one side, and axiological atheism is on the extreme other side. So
I don't have much in common with nihilism. In fact, it's one of the philosophies I do argue against quite a bit. Then they accuse, just because you're an atheist, they already have you figured out. You're a nihilist. It's just all science and that's it for you. Well, I think there's a lot of other things, that are meaningful to the human, existence besides just science. Science can explain it. That's not what gives me meaning.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Science can describe the observation of the emotion, but it's not really the emotion itself.
Yeah, it doesn't give it to you. I mean, I can look at science and be in awe, which I am, of cosmology and evolution, and it's wonderful. And I get a lot of meaning out of that. But that's as far as other things like my artistic tastes and poetry, things like that. I mean, that's more that's human emotion. That comes from the person you are. I mean, because me personally, my morals, I'm a virtue ethicist. I think that's the key to morality.
Can you explain that? I know what that is, but can you explain that?
Virtue ethics is basically focused on the agent, raising you with values. And while values can be subjective, why you should value them, that can be a personal opinion. That doesn't make them any less meaningful or moral. There is still a standard. I don't know what it is. It's still under philosophical debate, but my point is it comes from the person you are. So if you raise your child with these values and to look at the world this way, the goodness comes out in your actions. It's not based on a utilitarian, just the best result for the most people. It's more that's going to be the effect of you going into it. I mean, if you find $10 on the ground and give it back to somebody just because you don't want to get caught for taking it, for example, it's not as meaningful as you saying, well, this isn't mine, I want to give it back to this person. It ends in the same result, but the person you are says, you know what, I can't take this, it's not mine. Not just, maybe someone saw me take it and I don't want to get accused of stealing. There's a difference. And I think that's the key to morality, is the kind of person you are. It's the virtues in the people, which has a lot of, ground in emotions, all those things too. And they develop through people. And I think when you focus on those, to develop in somebody, that's where you're going to get your morality from. I mean, if you're just adhering to laws, okay, because someone told me to, or this is bad because someone said so, you're not going to really know why it's bad until you know it's wrong, when you figure out, the harm it can do or the good it can produce. When you truly understand that, you know what it's like to be good, to be bad, not just because someone said this is bad, so I shouldn't do it.
So how do you assess what is good? Because you're using those words good and bad. How do you assess what is good? I mean, I know as an axiological atheist how to explain that, but how do you explain it, or how does virtue ethics explain it?
I think good is tricky because it depends on the context you use it. And there's good for a lot of different things. Ice cream is good. Treating people good, is a virtue. There's all different kind of things where you can point to. Good for the most part. See, I don't agree with the part where good is just the opposite of bad. I don't think. But
I'm saying for a coherent argument, then what is bad? Because if good is opposite of bad, then what is bad? I'm just asking.
Well, bad would be what can cause what causes harm to other people. Bad is also holding those kind of things in you that would be bad to other people. Like, let's say you wouldn't even just get caught. Let's say you would steal $20 and not get caught. It's still bad just because you didn't get caught. It's the kind of person it's making you become to do these bad things. And we can recognize good and bad, for the most part, whenever we see them. I mean, we have concepts of what are good based on all different things, from what is helping people, what causes the most happiness, and there also is a point to where what makes me feel good. There's a lot of things that go into being good. It's not just one thing you can point at and say, this is what you should do. There is a whole philosophy behind that. That's why I think it's important. So we do kind of know what good is when you look at it. We know that feeding the hungry is a good thing. We don't have to have too much of an explanation as to why it's good. We know it's good to help people. I mean, these are things we already have as a base. I mean, that's within. We're a social animal. I mean, we can't have where everyone's going around taking from everyone else and just hoarding your own. We do see that as being bad. We can see that in the activities of primates. So when you say good, these are the virtues you want to promote, because it's going to be the greatest for you and for everyone else. It's going to be for society, and you want your children to grow with these values to keep going on. When you start with bad, like as we said earlier, racism, we know racism is bad because it causes harm, it causes animosity, it causes unrest in society. It doesn't. There's not any tangible benefit that could outweigh anything, all the bad it causes. And that's what we kind of want people to recognize is, this is why you want to do things, because it's beneficial to you and to other people.
Right. So I'll give you what an axiological says in a little bit simpler terms than kind of what you were saying there. First off, morality is the offshoot of what values are, and values have to be first established in axiology. First, you have to establish what the core thing of anything that's good and bad. Then you have to establish after that how it relates to other things. Then from there, you get the values. From the values, you then build the morality on top of them. I'm just saying for axiology. So the first thing for axiology is to assess what is good. And one of the ways it does that, it says a thing is good that has qualities that make it good. In other words, a chair is good if it can hold your weight. A chair is good if it lasts. Like say a paper cup. A paper cup can hold a drink, but a paper cup will not last long, so it doesn't have a systemic value. It's a systemic value, long-term value, or wide use value is low, even though the temporary use is high if it can hold liquid. But if a plastic cup cannot hold hot coffee, then it doesn't have a large external value for a lot of things. So its value then is low as opposed to a mug that can have hot and cold and it lasts a long time. So it has a higher good value. So you're able to take and break it down a lot more. The same thing with it allows you to see. It sees morality in the sense of the person like there's rings around you, a hierarchy of rings. In other words, you are going to care about what's closest to you. And ethically, as an axiological, I would believe you should. In other words, I think you should care about me because I'm a fellow human. But I think that there's a more value attached to how well you should treat your children. If you allowed me to die, but you saved your child, I wouldn't see you as committing an ethical violation.
Right.
Because I feel your responsibility is to what's connected closest to you. Just so in a sense, it's rings that go out. So if you think about it, it's your immediate family, then your connected family, then your connected friends, then your small little town, then the half of your state, your whole state, the whole region, the whole country, the whole world. So the whole world. If people in Africa die, that shouldn't be as much it matters. But because you're in Pennsylvania, it's not going to have the same moral weight as if your child or a neighbor's child dies, even though those are both equal human lives. And for me, it allows me to clarify in a more precise way what is then good. So if like you said, feeding the hungry. So then why don't we give if everyone's equal, then why don't we give all of our money to Africa or India or Mexico? Why not go down there and give all of our money to Mexico? But the reason that that's not a moral, what do you call it? I'm trying to think right now. A problem, whatever, is because you should care about Pittsburgh first, your own family first, your own neighbors first, and there's no, because there's no ethical issue the fact that you don't go and help Mexico or Africa first, even though the need might actually be greater than your children, than your town, than our country. But anyways, I mean, I try to just push my thing. I'm just saying that. So to me, like when the Christians try to attack me on ethics, I've read like 6 books on axiology. So.
Yeah, well, like I said, I definitely want to check out Robert Hartman's. I know that's the one I got a hold of first. I want to try to get into. So. Yeah, and I actually got into that because I felt a moral problem. Because once I realized I was an atheist in college. Well, it's not like college stopped. I mean, I had to finish my degree, and they had us take an ethics class. And in the ethics class, they told us, pick what ethics you like the best. And I go,
that doesn't even sound like an ethical thing to say.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I
no, I definitely agree with the with the axiological
axiological, yeah.
Of the of value and things, and I think that's very important, because we always say, well, why should you value? Well, this kind of points to, the value and morality go hand in hand.
Yes.
And you can subjectively say, oh, well, I don't want to value that, but here's why this is good. And then with morality, because there's still standards you have to go through, whether you agree with them or not. I mean,
right.
These are standards. No one's, because like I said, they like to accuse atheists of moral relativism, where it's just whatever I think goes, and that's not what it means. But neither does objective mean some kind of absolute or lawgiver. I mean, this is a system that's been constantly being worked on since the early days of philosophy. I mean, these are things that are constantly being progressed and probably always will. As it should be.
True.
It should expand. And when you get into religious morality, it's kind of an oxymoron.
Yeah, because like I said, I will not accept that religion's a morality. It's not. It's just following laws. It's not a moral system. It doesn't. There's no reason and evidence. It's just do whatever the hell. And if it contradicts, it's still okay. I mean, God can say don't kill. I mean, this is what I tell people. To me, as an axiologist, I would convict God as being the only one who deserves hell. Supposedly hell is eternal torture. Well, nobody deserves eternal torture. But if somebody did, it would be someone who killed everything on the planet. Well, there's only one person that says he did that, and that would be God, Yahweh. Killed everybody on the planet. So only person deserves to be in hell is the exact person you say invented hell for us. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, never committed such atrocities.
Never. And no human, not even Hitler, no human has ever genocide the entire planet. Nobody. All animals, all people. I mean, the moral weight of what, if that was real, what it did would be the only thing that deserves to be in hell.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand when they say that he's above, our moral standards. To me, that just pretty much concedes to say, well, anything goes then. Because you're substituting a supposed arbitrary set of criteria that they accuse atheists of, and implementing an absolute, which is absolutely an arbitrary.
Right. Yeah. They say that we have moral relativism, but I don't know what can be more relative than that.
Yeah. I know. God could say tomorrow it's permissible to burn witches again. And I guess know what to change it to go along with it.
Or marry babies. I mean, whatever he says goes.
Yeah.
Or we need to start sacrificing humans again. Or, I mean, he could say whatever he wants. I mean, they look at Isaac, being almost sacrificed as this most wonderful thing in the world. How horrific that a God would ask that, if that's true, and that a person would blindly go kill their child because God asked it. It's like the whole story is terrible.
Yeah, and I think the most disgusting part of it is how many people hold it to being a moral story.
I know.
Like, it's somehow, to me, that is sick. That is
it is sick.
That is sickness in your thinking. If you can juxtapose this, I look at it and I said, I don't care who did it. It's disgusting. I don't care if there is a God, your God.
That's right. It doesn't make it good.
I think he's an immoral monster.
Yeah, I totally agree. He is. If there is such a being, absolutely. His conviction right in his own book.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make that a moral story. Well, look at the book of Job. God over a bet with the devil, tests Job, kills his children, and then doubles his blessings at the end. Well, I have 3 kids. I don't want them to be killed and then give me 6 different kids.
Right, I know. But they don't get this, how often children are punished for what the parent does. That alone is the most immoral thing I ever heard in my life. I mean, but another thing that to me is interesting too is axiological positions are considered to be like a form of moral realism, which means that things that happen in the real world, like observation, then that's how you build the morality. So it's not moral relativism anyway. So when they say that I, as an axiological atheist, am a moral relativist, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm a moral realist.
Yeah, well, I definitely am too. I think there are real real truths to moral sentences. They speak to real truths
in the real world.
Yes.
Because real people suffer, real people think. It's like I always tell people, because I have axiology in my understanding, I can value things outside of harm. In other words, like people will say it's not moral to do things that hurt people. Well, I would say it's not moral to just destroy things because you can. In other words, when you say that if you only put morality as the removing of the possible of harm, how do you say then that it's wrong to say if I were to kill every single oak tree, just wipe, how about all trees in general, but still have air, or how about mountains? Just flatten every single mountain. Would you feel there's nothing at all? Can I just do whatever I want? Can I evaporate a whole lake or a whole sea and just put all the fish somewhere else? I mean, how much can I do to the planet and it have no ethics or nothing involved at all? I mean,
yeah, and even if you add like an X factor into it to say, well, I cut down all the trees so I can build homeless shelters. Well, at least there's something you can point to say we have something to weigh this with.
Yeah, the moral weight, yeah.
Commandment. There's something we could say benefit, and negative effects, and we can balance it out. Then you have a moral discussion.
Right.
When you start with absolutes, there's no discussion.
Right.
There is no room for any of this discussion. I mean, so I definitely agree there that that's something I disagree with moral nihilists too all the time. But
well, I would disagree with moral nihilism just for the fact that they say there's no such thing as value.
Yeah.
So I mean, we already my whole thinking is everything is value. So I mean, when I break it down, so I mean, we are at opposites. I can't even start. I say there's value, there's not. We're done. I mean, it's like the God thing,
Yeah.
You say there's a God, there isn't. So I mean, we're done. I mean, if we're going to keep talking nonsense, then and we're disagreeing on the most vital point. Yeah, we're done.
Yeah. There's nowhere else to go with this. I mean, well, considering that when you get into these discussions with the Christians, when you do hear their evidence for it, they can try to point to certain scientific reasons, some kind of whatever twisted logic they try to use, but it all comes down to this esoteric revelation that they when it all comes down to it, they can argue down the lines with everything we say, but that's why you have to keep pushing, because then you realize they branch off and it becomes this weird, I have a special feeling in my heart.
Yeah.
God let me know, and that's where you get them, because they all just know their arguments. Believe me, that's why I think it's important that atheists do study philosophy and try to understand these arguments, because this is where they go. You have to keep digging, because that's where it comes down to. When you get them on that point, that's where you really can do the most damage to their arguments, because they always fall to the same kind of weird, he let me know, he spoke, he wrote it on my heart, and none of that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because I always tell people, yeah, and right now you feel like you're not moving, right? But actually, our own sense of things is actually a misunderstanding of reality without science. Because actually, science tells us the Earth is spinning. And it actually is then rotating through the universe. So it's actually spinning and rotating, but you feel no movement at all. So your feeling without science could validate that the Earth is standing still. Right. And you would be 100% wrong. Right. So what you feel in your heart is, without science, is completely irrelevant.
Right. Yeah, and so when they try to point to science, and then you turn it back on them right away. Oh well, it's this weird, God is beyond science, space and time.
Yeah.
Then you run into more troubles, because how can something, then you get into the arguments. How can something timeless affect a temporal reality? And what would that even mean? Is now being part of this world with natural laws involved make him subject to natural laws? How can he if he can violate these laws, how can there be natural laws at all? I mean,
right, exactly. Well,
it always kind of plays into their hands. That's why I try not to let them go there with the arguments, because when you get into this vagueness, it's easy to shoehorn God in anywhere. They can tailor the evidence to whatever they want at this point. So.
Yeah, well, and the problem is that, like you're saying too, though, it requires like in some areas I'm very informed, so it requires us to be extra informed than them. But not everybody, obviously, not every atheist, is going to be a scholar on every single point. In fact, like I said, although I feel pretty good about certain points, you start talking about values, and I know what I'm talking about. You talk about certain things, I know what I'm talking about history of religion. But there's a lot of apologetics I haven't really studied that much on. I don't really, I would feel like I don't really know that much what I'm talking about. Or like I said, I don't really get into cosmological because I really don't know what I'm talking about, and I just tell them flat I don't know. But I think that's the problem is that when you talk to theists, like you said, they always go off of what they know. I always tell people, it reminds me of when you get information like for directions. There's a difference between taking directions and having them given to you. Having given to you, it gives them any way that person wants. So, in other words, like they'll say, "Oh, well, you just go down to this big tree. You'll see it. You'll see a big tree, and then I think there might be a McDonald's. Maybe that's a KFC. You know what? Maybe it's a Vaughn's, or it's a Ralph's, or whatever. It's a grocery store. No, maybe it's a gas station. But you'll see the big tree. That's not directions to me. Tell me what street. Tell me how it's a mile from this one street to the next street. It's going west. I mean, I demand people. I go, okay, let's start again. Am I going north or south or east or west? Oh, you're going west. Okay, so I'm going west. And then you just go down to the thing. Okay, how far down? Is it a mile? It's 10 miles. 10 miles. Well, thanks for telling me. I'd have been looking the whole time.
Yeah, get on with the old library used to be. That doesn't help.
Yeah, so I try to say the same thing for me is when I talk to Christians, I do not let them run the thing. I do not let them talk on a script. I keep stopping them because I do not want them to give me directions. I want to take it from them. So
right. I think that's the most important thing in these discussions.
Yeah, I try to make them talk on my level.
Right.
I try to bring Ray Comfort into Axiology. I make him talk on my level, and then I rip him apart. I don't let him bring me into his nonsense. Like you said, how many interviews has Ray Comfort did? Like 1,000 or something. I mean, he's good at it. He's probably way better. He's probably way better than me, at doing his little shtick. Mm-hmm. So I try to tell atheists the best thing I know you got to learn stuff. I agree, but I think the best thing is don't let them run the argument. Don't let them focus what you're going to do, because they like to do that. He'll go, well, just answer me a question. Have you ever lied? And I go, I'm not going to answer that question because I want to ask you a question. I don't even let him talk.
Right. Well, yeah, because he'll end up. Then now you're on the defensive.
Yes.
And then they get away with not having to answer any of your questions. And another key point is make them define their terms.
Yes.
Define their terms and don't let them go just run off of a script, because it always goes the same direction. They're taught how to do this. Apologists are taught how to run the script, and then they point to when they do get cornered, they point to the faults of atheism, like that somehow justifies their belief by default if atheism can't answer it.
Right.
They don't know, man, atheists or Hitler and this and that, and it's just one big.
I know. I really hate when they say Hitler was an atheist. It really irritates me. First off, that he was a Catholic, and then since he promoted the Catholic Church and Christianity, Mein Kampf talks about God and Christianity and Catholicism. Several times. And even then later, if you say, well, he turned pagan, okay, well, he was still religious. That guy was never, an atheist. And did you know there actually is belt buckles for the SS that have crosses on them? Come on. It's
God with us.
Yeah, God's with us. Yeah.
and then also they also think, even if, let's just say for sake of argument, that Hitler wasn't a Christian. Most of the SS was, and two, all the people who followed him believed he was working in clothing. What does that say about their religion?
Yeah,
if you do all those people into thinking he's justified.
Yeah.
So they're not helping their argument any. But the point is, Hitler was, Protestantism was big in Germany at the time. The SS took, it was a different form of Christianity. They took, it was a form of Aryan Volkish Christianity, where they rejected Jesus's Jewish descent, which okay, fine, whatever. But it was still a form of Christianity. They still stuck very, close to the doctrines. And his anti-Semitism came from Luther, which fueled the Inquisition. He took a lot of that from Luther, because Martin Luther, if anyone doesn't know, was a reformist who started the Lutheran and Protestant
in Germany.
Religions in Germany. And he wrote a book, The Jews and Their Lies, which most apologists don't want to mention that, but they'll use his other teachings suddenly. But that anti-Semitism is what fueled Hitler's view of Jews. And so even if they say he wasn't whatever particular denomination they want to believe in here in America, it depends on where you're at, it was a form of Christianity, and it still stuck to the core values of Christianity. And it still duped an entire nation of German Christians. So
yeah, I always say, but for sure he wasn't an atheist, so it's ridiculous.
Oh, no, he was not an atheist by any stretch of the imagination. He publicly denounced atheism.
And then just like I tell people too that they say Stalin. Well, Stalin killed atheists, so I don't know what kind of good support there was for an atheist. I mean, because Stalin, really don't understand, is actually a political ideology, not really an atheist ideology. Because he killed the anarchists, and the anarchists were atheists also. Yeah. And he seemed to have no problem killing atheists. I mean, it wasn't an atheist, regime. He didn't go after the church and kill them because he didn't believe in their God. They were a political power threat. Oh yeah, definitely.
That's what people don't understand. There's a difference between killing for your religion, killing for quote unquote atheism. Killing for atheism doesn't even make sense. Right?
It doesn't. Well, and even he wasn't even that hard to the church until the White War, which was basically when the Catholic Church tried to go against the communists, and after he won that, then he was kind of anti-religion. But before that, he wasn't really anti-religion. It was he thought he could work with the church in a sense, or at least see it as irrelevant.
Yeah.
So like you said, that they bring up these bullshit arguments, that don't really have any basis in reality.
Yeah, and it's just another dogmatic ideology, really, is what it comes down to, which I oppose any dogmatic ideology, whether it's quote unquote atheistic or not.
Right.
Not that they committed this in name of their atheism, but it's still another dogmatic regime that was closed to any kind of open dialogue or education or anything like that. It was just they were pretty much gods in the eyes of their people, Well, they put yourself as the absolute authority.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. Like they try to say North Korea. North Korea believes in Johnsy, which is basically, like you just said, that the political people themselves, Kim Jong, Young and Kim Jong Il, that they basically are some kind of almost deity or so whatever. It's like they draw straws, trying to find some kind of atheism, but it just proves, there really isn't people. There's not, just like there's not atheists out there doing terrorist bombings or whatever. If they're like, oh, you're a hardcore atheist. Yes, I'm a extremely hardcore atheist. What do? I do humanism. I feed the poor. I've gone down to Mexico and feed children, and that's terrible hardcore atheists that are humanists. Yeah, it's just hideous.
Yeah, and if there ever was an atheist that I knew that said, hey, let's go burn down a church, I'd be the first one to stop them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't support that.
You just don't hear about that, though. It's not like, that's not part of, what atheism does. I mean, of course, in a broader sense, atheism isn't an ideology or anything like that, of course, but there is a movement with it. We as many of us are humanists, naturalists, that kind of stuff, and I promote those kind of secular values, and that's and that's not necessarily atheist. I mean, you don't have to be an atheist to be a humanist, but they do tend to go hand in hand. I think that is the most reasonable, replacement for these religious ideologies. And then I'm open to someone who is truly moderate, which I consider a truly moderate as someone who's just distancing themselves from their religion. I'm more open to welcome them to sit down and have a conversation. I think there can be a lot done because I think it's a little fish in the right direction. We'll get them the rest of the way. It's the ones that just don't even want to hear it, like your Ray Comforts. It's the ones who are promoting this nonsense to shut the door for others.
Yeah, that is total nonsense. Yeah, I don't really see atheism as having to be connected with humanism. I think it's reasonable. I think if your atheism is reasonable, then your reasonable next step would be to care about people and be secular and all that and humanist. But I don't think that like you said, I think that atheism is a stance in a sense, but I definitely think that it connects to that. Usually, most people that are atheists, they don't just one day go, I'm going to stop believing in God. Most people that have the atheism, conclusion, they arrived there usually by some form of reason and evidence. So, and then I would say further than that is most people don't stay an atheist unless they follow reason and evidence.
Yeah. Like these ones like your Lee Strobels who claim they used to be an atheist, or your Kirk Camerons. I don't consider them atheists in the respect that you and I are, and most of the atheists I know are. They just don't they're pretty much just apatheists. They just don't think about it. They're
right.
Not necessarily.
Well, but I'm just saying
I am taking a stance.
Right, but
I follow the tradition that the philosophical tradition that goes along with it, such natural.
Right, and I hear what you're saying, but I don't have any problem with someone saying that these people were an atheist once. They may have been, but they didn't probably do it for reason and evidence. Like I said, that a person who stays an atheist usually eventually requires reason and evidence for this conclusion. It's not like it's not blind belief like they have. So someone could say they're an atheist, maybe even think they are, and then think that, stop requiring reason and evidence, and then going back to faith. Well, sure, you could go from an atheist back to a believer. But if you always require reason and evidence, at least one of those, I don't see how you could go back to belief, because belief requires to, no longer care about reason and evidence.
Yeah. Well, like I said, William K. Clifford in his say about beliefs, the ethics of beliefs, he states it's wrong for anyone at any time, anywhere, to believe anything on insufficient. That could seem rationalist to you, a little hard, but I think it's true for any relevant beliefs. Of course, we have a bunch of small beliefs. You can't justify every single one of them, but if you're going to base your life on a belief and you create a worldview from it, I think that definitely makes sense. And I think when you get into those kind of life-altering beliefs you want to pass on to your children and, in the way you see the world, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that is the way you set up, those kind of big life-important beliefs.
Yeah. So do you have plans to do more in the future, or do you have something that goals you hope to eventually achieve, or you just keep doing the same?
Yeah, I just want to keep going with this. Like I said, I love writing the blog. With the new baby, it's been kind of tough finding some time. But I definitely want to keep writing that. I want to start a book. I have several ideas for books I want to get into, and I definitely want to get those published. I think that will be my next step, is I want to start writing a few books and get them published, get them out there. And then just kind of keep on going with this, keep doing the activist thing. Like I said, maybe get do a couple speaking things, and just keep going. Just just try to keep promoting secular values and reason. I mean, that's kind of where I want to go with it. Just keep going the way I am.
So if someone if someone wanted to have you
dedicate more time to it.
So if someone wanted to have you as a speaker or to talk to you more, they can go to your blog and get contact you, or is there another way? Did you hear me?
What was that?
I said, so if someone was interested in having you be a speaker, like you said you wanted to be a speaker, can they contact you?
No, you broke up there, yeah.
I said if someone did want to have you be a speaker, like you said you have a desire to, where they contact you through your blog, or is there another way?
No, I can't hear anything.
Do you hear me now? Hello? All right, we're back up. We had a little disconnect there. So I was trying to ask you is, you had mentioned about having a desire to be a speaker more. So if someone wanted to have you be a speaker, how could they contact you? Would they go to your blog, or is there somewhere else that you want to give that they can contact you?
Yeah, they can either go on the blog at coupleofatheists.com, or they can friend me and Allison on Facebook. Rich and Allison is the username that we both use jointly, and we're on it quite a bit. We also have a couple of atheist discussion group and a page both on Facebook as well.
Yeah,
or you can email me at a couple of atheists at gmail.com.
All right. Well, the signal's really kind of getting bad, so I think we're gonna call this the end of the interview. So this is probably gonna drop again. But can you please give me an email or a text? Through Facebook of the links to make sure, and I will add them in this video, so that if people want to get a hold of you, they'll have all the information. So I really appreciate.
I'll definitely get it over to you.
Right. I'm gonna, as soon as they're done, I'm gonna upload it and stuff. It'll take a little bit, but I need to have that so I can then put it in the video comments, so that anyone that watches can then know how to get a hold of you. It's been really a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna say goodbye.